Hi, I'm Matt Harrison, President of the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod. I recall almost a decade ago now, when I was Executive Director of LCMS World Relief and Human Care, traveling to India and Sri Lanka after the great Asian tsunami. I'll never forget, I was in the airport in Paris, and there were some people coming back. They were from an evangelical American denomination. They had gotten there a few days previous and were already returning. But they said, "We found out a great way to witness during this event." Mind you, there were probably 250,000 deaths around that Indian Ocean rim. They said, "We're talking to people who are non-Christians and saying, if you would have believed in the right God, this wouldn't have happened to you." Wow, that struck me terribly. I felt like I was hit in the gut. And it was even worse when I got to Sri Lanka, especially when I realized that most of the peoples, the villages that are right on the coastline, many in India and Sri Lanka, but also throughout the region, those fishermen villages, many of them, if not most of them, are Christian. You know, when disaster strikes, it seems that God is absent. It seems that God is angry. It seems that God does not care for me or those people who are struck by disaster. But quite the opposite is true. Disasters bring an unbelievable focus upon our human need, upon our human helplessness, and they focus us to look for help. We look to Christ. We look to others who are bringing help. And those who are bringing help are overwhelmingly Christians worldwide, overwhelmingly. In many of the circumstances that I've been in around the world, there have been very few Muslim groups offering aid. I was standing on the beach talking to a Sri Lankan man whose village had been wiped out by two 40-foot waves. He showed me the remnants of his house just about 50 yards back from the beach. One wall was still standing, and on the one standing wall was this cross. In my little collection of crosses and crucifixes, it is to this day my favorite. It's beat up, it's glued back together with wax, it's got the original string tied on to keep the corpus in place. In this life, we often see and feel and hear death, and in disaster even smell it. But just like the women looking at the cross, when Jesus was dying, even dead, they thought, this is the worst possible thing that can happen. Nothing could be worse. God hates us, God hates Christ, everything we believed in is gone. And yet, right at that moment, the greatest thing for the greatest number of people, the whole world, that was ever to take place was taking place. The death of Jesus for the sins of all, leading to his wonderful resurrection. But that is something you couldn't know at the time. In disaster, many times we don't have answers. We don't know why. But we know this: for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son. And for Christians, we can even say with Job, though he slay me, I will yet hope in him. God has his purposes, and all things work together for good. Thanks for the great work you do. Thanks for the theology of the cross. That is, we understand God by the invisible things of his word. We see God at work in suffering, not in glorious revelations and glorious possessions and other worldly things. When I am weak, then I am strong. Thanks for what you're doing, and the Lord be with you.